Edit bases. Edit bases. How to edit bases in Photoshop? Path segments and components and points. Path segments and components and points. A path consists of, by the way, one or more straight or curved segments, and anchor points mark and the end points of the path segments. And on curved segments, each selected anchor point displays one or two direction lines, by the way, and ending in direction points. And the positions of directions lines and points determine the size and shape of a curved segment. And moving these elements reshapes the curves in a path. Like this image now and this screenshot appear for you, and they explain everything about the path. We have A and B and C and D and E. ASC meaning curved line segment, and BSC meaning direction point, and CSC meaning direction line, and DSC meaning selected anchor point, and ESC meaning unselected anchor point. And by the way, a path can be closed with no beginning or end, for example a circle, or open with distanced end points, for example a wavy line. And the smooth curves are connected by anchor points called smooth points, by the way, and sharply curved paths are connected by corner points. Like this next screenshot. This image now explains for you actually how to smooth point and corner point. And when you move a direction line on a smooth point, the curved segments, by the way, on both sides of the point are adjusted simultaneously by compression. And when you move a direction line on a corner point, only the curve on the same side of the point as the direction line is adjusted. Like the next screenshot again, adjusting a smooth point and a corner point here now. And a path doesn't have to be one connected series of segments, by the way, and it can contain more than one distanced and separate path component. And each shape in a shape layer is a path component as described by the layer's clipping path, by the way, like the next screenshot. This next image now explains for you the separate path components selected. And select a path. How to select a path in Photoshop? You can selecting a path component or path segment displays all of the anchor points on the selected portion, by the way, including any direction lines and direction points if the selected segment is curved actually. And direction handles appear as filled circles, and selected anchor points as filled squares, and unselected anchor points as hollow squares. And like we have steps. Step number 1, you should select a path component firstly, including a shape in a shape layer. Then select the path selection tool, and after that click anywhere inside the path component. And if a path consists of several path components, only the path component under the pointer is selected actually. And to select a path segment, you should select the direct selection tool firstly, and then click one of the segment's anchor points or drag a marquee over part of the segment. Like the next image, this screenshot now explain for you how to drag a marquee to select segments. Step number 2, to select additional path components or segments, you should select the path selection tool firstly, or the direct selection tool, and then hold down shift while selecting additional paths or segments. And by the way, when the direct selection tool is selected actually successfully, you can select the entire path or path component by alt clicking if you use Windows, or option click if you use macOS inside the path to activate the direct selection tool. When most other tools are selected, position the pointer over an anchor point and press Ctrl Windows if you use Windows, or Command if you use macOS. And after that, how to select multiple paths in Photoshop. By the way, you can select multiple paths on the same layer or across different layers. We have steps in this point now. Step number 1. In the paths panel, do any of the following to make the paths visible. You should shift click to select continuous paths, and after that, Control click if you use Windows, or Command click if you use macOS to select non-continuous paths. And step number 2. Select the path selection tool or the direct selection tool and do any of the following again. Drag over the segments and shift click the paths. Step number 3. To select additional path components or segments, so select the path selection tool or the direct selection tool and then hold down the shift key while selecting additional paths or segments. Note and be careful. You can choose to work with passes in the isolation mode, by the way, to isolate only the layer containing a pass with the pass active double click using a selection tool. And you can also isolate single or multiple layers by using the select or isolate layers menu item, or by setting layer filtering to selected. And you can exit the isolation mode in several ways, by the way, such as turning off layer filtering, or switching layer filtering to something other than selected, or double clicking away from a pass using the pass selection tools. How to reorder passes. By the way, you can reorder saved passes that are not shape, type or vector mask passes in the passes panel. And in the passes panel, by the way, you can drag the pass to the position you want. In Photoshop, you can select and drag more than one pass simultaneously. And how to duplicate passes. In Photoshop, we have two steps. Step number 1. In the passes panel, you should select the pass you want to duplicate. And in Photoshop, you can select more than one pass. And after that, next, second thing, you can do any of the following. Alt drag if you use Windows, or Option if you use macOS. Alt drag if you use Windows, or Option drag the passes. And then choose duplicate pass from the panel menu. How to specify pass options. By the way, you can define the color and thickness of pass lines to suit your test and for easier visibility. And while creating a pass using the pen tool, for example, click the gear icon, and in the options bar, now specify the color and thickness of pass lines, and also specify whether you want to preview pass segments as you move the pointer between clicks. Rubber band effect, like the next screenshot. This image now explains for you pass options, thickness and color. And what's the meaning of adjust pass segments? Adjust pass segments is meaning that you can edit a pass segment at any time, but editing existing segment is slightly different from drawing them. And keep the following tips in mind when editing segments, by the way. And if an anchor point connects two segments, moving that anchor point always changes both segments, by the way. And when drawing with the pen tool, you can temporarily activate the direct selection tool so that you can adjust segments you have already drawn, and press Ctrl if you use Windows, or Command if you use macOS while drawing. And when you initially draw a smooth point with the pen tool, dragging the direction point changes the length of the direction line on both sides, by the way, of the point. However, when you edit an existing smooth point with the direct selection tool, you change the length of the direction line only on the side you are dragging. How to move straight segments. We have two steps. Number 1, with the direct selection tool, you should select the segment you want to adjust. Step number 2, drag the segment to its new position. And how to adjust the length or angle of straight segments. We have two steps again. Number 1, with the direct selection tool, select an anchor point on the segment you want to adjust. Step number 2, drag the anchor point to the desired position. Then shift drag to constrain the adjustment to multiples of 45 degrees. Adjust the position or shape of curved segments. How to adjust the position or shape of curved segments? We have two steps again. Number 1, with the direct selection tool, you should select a curved segment firstly, or an anchor point and either end of the curved segment. Direction lines appear if any are present, and some curved segments use just one direction line, by the way. Step number 2, to adjust the position of the segment, drag the segment and shift drag to constrain the adjustment to multiples of 45 degrees. And you have we have image here now. We have a screenshot now. The screenshot now appear for you explain how to click to select the curved segment, then drag to adjust. To adjust the shape of the segment on either side of a selected anchor point, you should drag the anchor point or the direction point firstly, then shift drag to constrain movement to multiples of 45 degrees. like this screenshot now. Drag the anchor point or drag the direction point. Note and be careful. Adjusting a path segment also adjusts the related segments, by the way, letting you intuitively transform path shapes and to only edit segments between the selected anchor points, similar to earlier Photoshop versions, and select constrain path dragging in the options bar. Note here now, you can also apply a transformation such as scaling or rotating to a segment or anchor point. How to delete a segment? How to delete a segment here now? We have 3 steps. To delete any segment, we have 3 steps. Number 1, if you are creating an opening in a closed base, you should select add anchor point tool firstly and add 2 points where you want to cut to occur. Number 2, you should select the direct selection tool and select the segment you want to delete. Step number 3, press backspace if you use Windows or delete if you use macOS to delete the selected segment. Pressing backspace or delete again erases the rest of the path. How to delete the direction line of an anchor point? How to delete the direction line of an anchor point? By the way, using the convert anchor point tool, click the anchor point of the direction line, and the smooth point becomes a corner point, by the way. And how to extend an open path? How to extend an open path in Photoshop? We have 3 steps. Number 1, using the pen tool, position the pointer over the endpoint of the open path you want to extend. The pointer, by the way, changes when it's precisely positioned over the endpoint. Step number 3, click the endpoint and step number 2, click the endpoint, and step number 3. Number 3, to create a corner point position the pen tool where you want to enter the new segment and click if you are extending a path that ends at a smooth point, and the new segment will be curved, by the way, by the existing direction line. And to create a smooth point position the pen tool where you want to enter the new curved segment and drag. How to connect 2 open paths? How to connect 2 open paths? We have 3 steps again. Number 1, you can use the pen tool and position the pointer over the endpoint of the open path that you want to connect to another path, and the pointer changes when it's precisely positioned over the endpoint. Step number 2. Number 2, click the endpoint. Number 3, to connect the path to another open path, and then click an endpoint on the other path. And when you precisely position the pen tool over the other path's endpoint, a small merge symbol appears next to the pointer, by the way. And to connect a new path to an existing path, draw the new path near the existing path and then move the pen tool and to the existing path unselected endpoint and click that endpoint when you see the small merge symbol that appears next to the pointer. How to move or nudge anchor points or segments using the keyboard? We have 2 steps. Number 1, you should select the anchor point or path segment firstly. Number 2, click or hold down any of the arrow keys on the keyboard to move 1 pixel at a time in the direction of the arrow, and hold down the shift key in addition to the arrow key to move 10 pixels at a time. How to add or delete anchor points? By the way, adding anchor points can give you more control over a path, or it can extend an open path, and however, try not to add more points than necessary, and a path with fewer points is easier to edit, by the way, and display and print, and you can reduce the complexity of a path by deleting unnecessary points. And the toolbox contains 3 tools, by the way, for adding or deleting points, and the pen tool, the add anchor point tool, and the delete anchor point tool. And by default, the pen tool, by the way, changes to the add anchor point tools as you position it over a selected path, or the delete anchor point tool as you position it over an anchor point, and you must select auto add or delete in the options bar to enable the pen tool to automatically change to the add anchor point or delete anchor point tool. And you can also select and edit multiple paths simultaneously. You can also reshape a path while adding anchor points by clicking and dragging as you add. Note here and be careful. Don't use the delete or backspace keys or the edit and then cut or edit or clear commands to delete anchor points. These keys, by the way, and comments delete the point and line segments that connect to that point. How to add or delete anchor points. How to add or delete anchor points. We have 3 steps. Step number 1, you should select the path you want to modify. Step number 2, you should select the pen tool and the add anchor point tool or the delete anchor point tool. Step number 3, to add an anchor point, position the pointer over a path segment and click. To delete an anchor point, position the pointer over an anchor point and click. How to disable or temporarily override automatic pen tool switching. By the way, you can override automatic switching of the pen tool to the add anchor point tool or the delete anchor point tool. This is useful, by the way, when you want to start a new path on top of an existing path. And in Photoshop, deselect auto or add or delete in the options bar. How to convert between smooth points and corner points. How to convert between smooth points and corner points in Photoshop. We have steps again here now. Step number 1, you should select the path you want to modify. And step number 2, you should select the convert point tool or use the pen tool and hold down Alt if you use Windows or Option if you use macOS. And note here now to activate the convert point tool while the direct selection tool is selected. Position, by the way, the pointer over an anchor point and press Ctrl Alt if you use Windows or Command plus Option if you use macOS. Step number 3, position the convert point tool over the anchor point you want to convert and do one of the following again. To convert a corner point to a smooth point, by the way, drag away from the corner point to make direction lines appear, like this screenshot now. This next screenshot now explain for you dragging a direction point out of a corner point to create a smooth point. And to convert a smooth point to a corner point without direction lines, click the smooth point and clicking a smooth point to create a corner point. To convert a corner point without direction lines, what should you do? To corner point with independent direction lines, first drag a direction point out of a corner point and making it a smooth point with direction lines, and release the mouse button only and don't release any keys you may have pressed to activate the convert anchor point tool, and then drag either direction point, by the way. And how to convert a smooth point to a corner point with independent direction lines, drag either direction point. Look at this picture now. This picture now explains for you this image how to converting a smooth point to a corner point. And adjust path components. What about adjust path components? By the way, you can reposition a path components including a shape in a shape layer and anywhere within an image, and you can copy components within an image or between two Photoshop images. And using the path selection tool, you can merge overlapping components into a single component, and all vector objects, whether they are described by a saved path, work path, or vector mask, can be moved and reshaped and copied or deleted. And you can also use the copy and paste commands to duplicate vector objects between a Photoshop image and an image in another application, such as Adobe Illustrator. How to change the overlap mode for the selected path components. We have many steps. We have steps here now, 2 steps only. Step number 1, you should using the path selection tool and drag a marquee to select existing path areas. Step number 2, you should choose a shape area option from the path operations drop down menu in the options bar, and we have options here in this point. Combine shapes, meaning adds the path area to overlapping path areas, and subtract from shape area, meaning removes the path areas from overlapping path areas, and intersect shape areas, meaning restricts the area to the intersection of the selected path area and overlapping path areas. And what's the meaning of exclude overlapping shape areas? You can to exclude the overlap area. So what about show or hide the selected path component? Show or hide the selected path component, you should do one of the following. Choose view and select show and select target path firstly, and after that you should choose view and extras. This command, by the way, also shows or hides a grid guides and selection edges and annotations and slices. how to move a path or path component. How to move a path or path component. We have steps. Step number 1. Select the path name in the path panel and use the path selection tool to select the path in an image. To select multiple path components, shift click each additional path component to add it to the selection. Step number 2. Drag the path to a new location. If you move any part of a path beyond the canvas boundaries, the hidden part of the path is still available, by the way. Like this screenshot now. This image now explains for you everything about dragging a path to a new location. Note here now, if you drag a path so that the move pointer is over another open image, and the path is copied to that image, by the way. And what about reshape a path component? Reshape a path component. We have 2 steps. Step number 1. You should select the path name in the paths panel, and after that you can use the direct selection tool to select an anchor point in the path. Step number 2. You should drag the point or its handles to a new location, by the way. And how to merge overlapping path components. How to merge overlapping path components. We have 2 steps again. Step number 1. You should select the path name in the path panel firstly, and then select the path selection tool. And after that, step number 2, to create a single component from all overlapping components, you should choose merge shape components from the path operations drop down menu in the options bar. How to copy a path component or path. How to copy a path component or path. By the way, to copy a path component as you move it, select the path name in the paths panel and click a path component with the path selection tool, and then alt drag if you use Windows or option drag if you use macOS the selected path. And after that, to copy a path without renaming it, drag the path name in the paths panel to the new path button and at the bottom of the panel. And to copy and rename a path, alt drag if you use Windows or option drag if you use macOS and the path in the path panel to the new path button at the bottom of the panel, or select the path to copy and choose duplicate path from the paths panel menu and enter a new name after that for the path in the duplicate path dialog box, and then click OK. And after that, to copy a path or path component into another path, should select the path or path component you want to copy, and then choose edit, then choose copy, and then select the destination path and choose edit, and then choose paste. How to copy path components between 2 Photoshop files. We have 3 steps. Step number 1. Open both images firstly. After that, in the source image, you can use the path selection tool. After that, to select the entire path or the path components that you want to copy. Step number 3. To copy the path component, do any of the following. You should drag the path component from the source image to the destination image, and the path component is copied, by the way, to the active path in the paths panel. After that, in the source image, select the path name in the paths panel, and then choose edit, and then choose copy to copy the path. And in the destination image, choose edit firstly, and then choose paste. And you can also use this method to combine paths in the same image, by the way. And to paste the path component into the destination image, you should select the path component in the source image, and then choose edit, then choose copy. In the destination image, choose edit, then choose paste. How to delete a path component. How to delete a path component. We have 2 steps again. Step number 1. You should select the path name in the paths panel. After that, click a path component with the path selection tool. Step number 2. Press backspace if you use Windows or delete if you use macOS to delete the selected path component. And what about align distribute path components? Align and distribute path components. By the way, you can align and distribute path components that are described in a single path. For example, you can align the left edges of several shapes contained in a single layer, or distribute several components in a work path along their horizontal centers. And note here now, to align shapes that are on separate layers, use the move tool. And to align components, use the path selection tool to select the components you want to align, and then choose an options from the path alignment drop down menu in the options bar, like this screenshot now. This image now is explained for you alignment options. And to distribute components, select at least 3 components you want to distribute, and then choose an option from the path arrangement drop down menu in the options bar, like the next screenshot. Distribute options here now.